Arindam.
Hi.
Great to see you.
Thank you for inviting me.
I've been wanting to do this for a long time.
Same here. We've been planning about a lot of sessions. Nothing happened. But now finally good that we are here.
Right. Okay, I'm going to cover two things of yours today. You wrote a book in 2012, as far as I remember. It was published in 2012 called A Matter of Greed, right? Let me read out a little bit about what the blurb on the book says. It says, greed has always been a driving force in human lives and human history, right? We agree to that. You show in that book, you show how the greed of Western expansionist civilizations has dominated not only their own history, but has come to dominate the entire world, to the great sorrow of the majority of the world's people, right? Using a broad range of sources and drawing upon the best insights of such thinkers as Noam Chomsky, William Blum, and Pepe Escobar, you have brilliantly analyzed the fundamental force driving the relentless string of tragedies in human affairs. Of course, it's a must read for everybody who's concerned with international peace and social justice. But then I moved to your article, Liquid Jihad, which is, in short, it's called Liquid Jihad. It has a bigger title, which you published in 2017, right?
Yes.
I'll come to Liquid Jihad later because I do want to analyze it. It's a vast paper. It's a very vast paper. It'll take me at least 4 segments of this. But one thing which stood out to me when I used to talk to you, you said geopolitics happened because you asked too many questions, about the past too early in your life. Would you like to elaborate on that?
I come from a place called Durgapur, and we grew up during the 80s. So naturally, there was no internet during those days. But what was there was English music. So we sort of grew up on a staple of English music where, groups like Ventures and Bonniam used to be regular features. Now, one song of Bonniam which particularly stuck me was a song titled By the Rivers of Babylon.
Yeah.
So my question to my English teacher during those days, well, I could only go to him because, that natural tendency of a brown-skinned Indian to consider a white-skinned British as his culturally superior counterpart. So I would go and I would bother him with questions as to why would these people weeping, sitting by the river? Why do they have to remember Zion? Who's Zion? And Colin's patent dialogue was, hey man, don't bother me. So that's the earliest recollection of my asking too many questions, if I can think of. Then it so happened that there was this, when we were growing up, there was books that you can read, which were essentially the children's literature, and then books that you cannot read, which were considered to be adult stuff. And my uncle had presented one book to my sister, and that was a translation of Desmond Bagley's The Running Blind, the Bengali translation. It was called Morichika. And my sister would keep the book somewhere, absolutely secure, so that I could manage to reach physically at least. And me being me, guys like us, when we were growing up, you tend to gravitate towards the things that you're barred from. So what I would do is I would find time, and when nobody would be there, I would take that book out and I would read it page by page. And so when I think I was in class, I don't remember, 5 or 6 probably, during that time when I read that book. And there were so many things. I found the book very interesting. And Running Blind still remains to be one of my most favorite spy stories, of course, it being the first one. But then there were several questions which were there in Running Blind, like the protagonist of Running Blind, Alan Stewart. He was a guy who was a Scotsman, and he was working for the English government, and he hated England. And there was no explanation why. So this was one question in my mind, that if you're working there, if you hate England so much, if you hate the Majesty's government so much, why do you work for him? Why do you work for it? Then there was this Russia and Finland affair, where Finland is considered to be a area of influence of Russia, and they hate it. So that was another question, because this was this Running Blind was captured majorly around the Scandinavian area, Iceland, to be precise. So these were questions which nobody could answer. And I read the book thinking that, I would be reading some adult stuff, and which essentially is, how it is to guys who are growing up. But then it landed up to be a story which was a complete different world to me. It opened up a complete different new world to me. And there were questions again there which nobody had an answer to, and I couldn't ask anyone because this book was, out of bounds for me, supposed to be out of bounds for me. So that is another story that I can remember. Then I think I told you before that these libraries that we had in Durgapur were mostly Bengali libraries. And Bengali literature has got a very good deposit as far as youth literature is concerned. But Bengali literature is not good at all when you talk about adult literature. So not much to read there. Early on life, what I started doing was I started reading the translated books. The Robert Bloch's Psycho and Bram Stoker's Dracula and all. And there was, of course, a library period in our school, and we would pick up books that we like, and we would. But they were mostly Enid Blyton and Enid Blyton, actually, Famous Five and Secret Seven and all. So that's how it started. And then there was this interesting thing that happened. We discovered that there's this library called 18-room hostel in Durgapur. Okay, that was a library where you had English books of Maclean and Forsyth and all. But 18-room hostel library needed your father's signature because it was a Durgapur steel plant library, and all guys roaming about there in Durgapur were the next generation of steel plant employees. And I could never get my father to sign on the document which would enable me to get books from that library. So, necessity is the mother of invention. We had a friend called Ajitab Saxena. He was the guy who was the lucky guy who got his dad to sign on that paper, and he was a member of that library. So he would pick up a book and we would read through him. So that's how it started. If I look back, I think curiosity is the thing that sort of drove me and kept driving me. That's how it was.
That's what stands out because in your labels that have been given by publishers and certain Wikipedia, I think probably might be having soon an article on it. It says that you're a communication expert and that you're a health and lifestyle mentor to youngsters. You believe in adventures, all this geopolitics and history and personal growth. It's like Ali Baba's cave for you. It's like a treasure hunt, right?
Yeah.
Elaborate on this a little bit more because we are in the same field, being mentors to youngsters, and I really liked that you came from a corporate world, and you know how it is in the corporate world. They believe in upgrading commodities and products, but you kind of made your goal that you want to upgrade human values, right? So just explain a little bit of this. For me, it's equivalent to the NCC and the NSS and the Girl Guides. I've been doing a little bit of mentorship also, but yours is fascinating because you are eventually doing these workshops on behavioral training, right? And it's basically for industry professionals. You've started combining it with education now. And education, I'm an educationist, so I'm very interested in this. Just elaborate a little bit on that.
Okay, see, what has happened is that, I started my career as a trainer with a US multinational company. And training in India is I hate to say this, but it's a copycat of what Western management schools and management institutions and businesses do. So there's a lot of focus, and there's a lot of activity based around what they do and how they think things should move. And in this whole process, what they miss out is that the focus that they were putting on the people, and the fact that probably the requirements of a Western population could be completely different from the requirement of the subcontinental population. So this I realized when I was training with this US company, and then I moved on to another multinational, this with a bigger and a much better base in India. And after that, I was in Gulf for a brief period of time. So all this while, what I was noticing is that these people do have a lot of focus on their corporate goals. But what is preventing them from achieving is the lack of focus on their personal goals. And as I always speak about goal setting is, if there are certain character and personality traits which are responsible for lifetime success. And so you have to understand what are they, and you have to really set your goals based on where you lack and how you can improve that. Till the time you manage to do that, success is going to be an illusion. And no matter how much you achieve in life, there's got to be that creeping feeling somewhere that you are unhappy about whatever you've done, and you're not sure what is wrong. So that's where this thing came in. That was one point of view that I was operating from. I still operate from. Another point of view is that there's been a lot of technological advancements. We hold a cell phone, which is probably the sum total of all entire human knowledge that is there today. But the fact is that in our heart, we are still ruled a lot by resentment and hatred and mostly negative emotions, which you see a lot today. We see a lot today on social media. So you're using a tool which is something like a social media, which is the culmination of human technological advancement, and you are using that to fight with other people who you've never met. So your emotions are being run by a negative part of your mind, which is basically hatred or resentment. And that's something which is never constructive. So this also plays a kind of a major role in my mind, this is a major factor in my mind. And my trainings also are based a little bit out of that. So I believe that when we talk about, how shall I put it? When we talk about the fact that when you can shift your focus from what is readily available in the shape of technology, and when you start looking at yourself and compare the growth that technology has had and the growth that you've had as a human being in the past 10,000 years, then I think that we sort of cut a very sorry picture. So that's what I mean. This is my belief. That's what I think we need to focus more on, and that's what I focus as far as my training is concerned. So that's about it.
Let's move on to my focus. My focus has always been Islam and Reformation and all that. So when I found your article, it was transfixed, and I still keep studying it. I told you it's very vast, very vast. You published it on the Medium app, I believe.
Yes,
it has a longer title, but for me, it's it's always going to be Liquid Jihad. Now, what you've done in the article, and you published this in 2017, a good 4 years later, of A Matter of Greed, right? You say,
4 or 5 years.
Yeah, yep. You say that we are divided into people who believe the entire blame lies with the West of whatever is happening, in the world today. It's basically Islam versus the West, right? And there are people who entirely put the blame on radical Islam. That would be people like Bernard Lewis and George Friedman. The people who entirely blame the West are like Pepe Escobar and Sami Mubayid. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Sami Mubayid.
Mobile,
right? But you have stayed focused on the people who are in the center, who are neutral basically. That would be somebody like Jason Burke and the Cockburn brothers like Patrick Cockburn and Alexander Cockburn. Right?
Yeah.
Now, what basically elaborate a little bit on this, although it's obviously clear what you tried to put in the article. You try to explore it, and there's a wonderful way the article goes on. It starts with I would believe, the early times. You've given the example of imagining a lush green field, with all the fruits and paths available for building, and that's basically how civilization started, right?
That was J.W. Smith.
Right. And then you kind of, summarize it, that how the villains came in, like there is this group of a cabal of, powerful, greedy people who are either very strong themselves or they hire these muscle men, right? And they start controlling the resources. You brought in J.W. Smith, the political economist, right? I got stuck. First, let's elaborate on that. What brought about this article? Because it's an extensive study. I can see the language has improved. I can see your perspective has kind of evolved from what A Matter of Greed was and to this article. So how did it How did it conceive? I mean, how did this come about?
The liquid jihad one or the matter
Yeah,
of greed one,
the
or both?
liquid jihad, obviously.
Liquid jihad is an extension of matter of greed, and matter of greed is an extension of my childhood. So all these questions that I kept asking, okay, and did not get any answers to, which led to the internet, which led to Samuel Huntington, which led to so many authors, which led to so many thinkers. This was a kind of a sort of culmination of sort, which why when I finally realized that, okay, this is how the game is being played, I thought maybe I should write them, I should track them down. So it was a humongous task, and I was putting them chapter by chapter. And then a book was something which I did not have in mind, to be honest with you. When I'm talking about matter of greed, then I was picking up quotes from J.W. Smith. So I wrote to J.W. Smith asking for his permission of whether I can use his quotes or not. To which J.W. Smith wrote back saying that of course you can use, and if you don't mind, can I take a look at the manuscript? So I sent him a couple of chapters. And he went overboard and he said, this is brilliant. This is something. I still have the mails. In fact, I have mails. I used to correspond with Noam Chomsky at one point in time. I've stopped after. Yeah. So J.W. Smith is a major influence as far as this book is concerned. And this is a gentleman who was running this publishing house called Institute for Economic Democracy. And J.W. Smith said that, if you don't have a problem, I want to publish this book. So matter of greed happened just like that. I never had to go look out for a publisher and nothing like that. I sent a couple of chapters to J.W. Smith. He read those chapters. He was absolutely bowled over. He asked me for the remaining 7 or 8, or I don't remember how many chapters were there. So I sent that entire thing to him. He put me in touch with somebody called Becker Sidney Smith, and Sidney was the guy looking after the publishing part of Institute of Economic Democracy. And that's how the book got released in the US. So that's about matter of greed. Okay, now now when I look at matter of greed and when I look at liquid jihad, matter of greed was, as I said, it was the first part of my life, and it was probably a kind of a hasty decision to summarize whatever little I have learned. And because somebody liked it, a book like that came out. Okay. This was fairly influenced by the likes of Chomsky. Yes, Huntington was there, but then Huntington was sort of overridden by Chomsky at one point in time, as far as my understanding of the entire situation is concerned. And then, of course, because of becoming friends with Pepe, I got to become friends with a lot of other people, and you know how this kind of a feedback loop builds up, and you sort of get influence, and you start influencing people. So that's what happened, and matter of greed happened. Liquid jihad is probably a continuation of my journey from a matter of greed towards the
of South America. They were putting in all these articles and all these blogs and all these research papers, which was basically looking for the CIA. And astounding similar things today, or has it changed to a different level now?
Oh yes,
But first, just explain. You came across Saunders, and then what was your reaction when you realized this had happened?
It's very difficult to put it across that way when you first get to read. I got introduced to Saunders through Sidney Smith, and he had sent me a couple of paragraphs, and then I was reading, and then I said, if you can send me more, because then that was a time when PDF was not in vogue, so I had to add. Of course, PDFs were probably available. Only thing is that I did not know. So that was the time when Sidney Smith got me introduced to this chap, and there was a website called Gigapedia, I think, which was a free library of sorts. You could download your PDFs and all. And then I think there was some problem with Gigapedia. Too many people were downloading stuff without permission, so they had to shut down. So there I downloaded a couple of books, and that's how it started actually. So yes, and that was also a time when I had not come across this gentleman, Yuri Bezmenov. So McCarthyism was a kind of a massive shock to me. Yes, And that was the time you could say, I mean, if I look at my understanding of global geopolitics, that was a phase where that was one growing up phase, So, and I realized what could be the game that is being played and how you can control minds of people and how easily it can be achieved if you have a well laid out plan and if you can sustain it over a period of time. And then came this gentleman, Yuri Bezmenov, and when he was talking about how do you use subversion as a force which takes a country apart, and the first stage is demoralization, and it lasts for 20 years, and how KGB achieves demoralization, it was complete McCarthyism from the perspective of Soviet Union. So yes, when I read about McCarthyism, even if there is an iota of doubt in my mind, I have got somebody from the other side of the Iron Curtain who comes out and says the same thing about demoralization of a nation, which goes on for 20 years, and how you target institutions and how you target families and how you target the law and order and how you how you target religion, how you target local cultures, how you demoralize these people. And yes, so that's how it was. It was a complete new discovery and one that makes sense. As far as you know, as far as we are sitting here today, as far as Kashmir or as far as Indian subcontinental narrative is concerned, yes, there's a massive McCarthyism, or if I consider Yuri Bezmenov demoralization going on, which has been going on for a really long time actually. And in fact, I wrote an essay just about a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So which talks just about the same. That
it's published in the Heartland Analyst, right? Right.
It's published in Heartland.
Again, a question: what prompted the setting up of Heartland Analyst? I know this story. I know we needed an alternative media. I know the shrinking of space and everything. But let's hear it from you. The site Heartland Analyst.
Heartland was actually, I'll tell you, Heartland was the idea of a friend of mine. The name is something that I thought of, but Heartland is an idea of a friend of mine. Is the one that I address, the one that we describe in the website as Tony Stark. So he's a guy who doesn't want his name to come out. For some reasons, he wants to remain anonymous. He is an energy consultant and he is tied up across with some very big shots in the energy industry. So he's the guy, he's my batchmate basically. So he's the guy, we went to the same school together. He told me that, with your interest in geopolitics and the kind of updates that you keep posting, and Medium wouldn't be the best platform, even though if it has got a massive reach, why don't we build up a website of our own, which we can then, modify and they can then diversify into something bigger with time, and even maybe think of creating a business model out of this. So this was his idea. That is where, and we were sitting in, we have a lake just beside my house where I stay in South Carolina.
Share pictures. You share pictures.
Yeah, the Ravindra Sarovar Lake. So when this chap used to come back from his consulting tours and all, we would meet up in the evening by the lake and we'd sit and chat. So sitting by the lake is where this idea came in, that we probably need a website and where I would be putting up political analysis and I would be getting the likes of you all to put up their perspectives and essays, and he would be providing with energy updates from time to time, or eventually when he puts a stop to all his consulting work and when he comes down and settles back in Calcutta for good, then he would be a more visible contributor as far as his contributions were concerned. So that's where Heartland happened.
I like it that you still call it Calcutta. It's always going to be Calcutta for me.
It's always going to be Calcutta.
It's always going to be Bombay for me.
Oh yes.
Absolutely. Okay. Again, coming back to liquid jihad, the Americans are pulling out, and it's kind of rattled everybody. Even the Pakistanis, for all their bravado and everything, it is rattling them. Connecting it to your liquid jihad, right? What do you see happening?
See, Americans are pulling out is this is why people are rattled, why Pakistan is rattled is something which we in training which we call change. People are scared to change. So there's the status quo which has been there for a really long time, and Pakistan, with all its responsibilities or the lack of it, has been playing from the sides with no direct stakes as far as governing the country is concerned, governing Afghanistan is concerned, apart from needling the bona fide government of Afghanistan with their share of Taliban. Now, if United States leaves, And now, if a major share of the well-being of Afghanistan falls on Pakistan, what they do is a different thing. But looking at the way they've handled their own state of affairs, it should make them nervous as to how they're going to handle Afghanistan, because they have not been. How shall I put it? If I put the army, part of Pakistan out, they have not been very effective as far as managing their country is concerned.
True.
So if you haven't managed to run your country properly for the past 70 or 75 years, expecting you to play a major role in running another country is bound to rattle you. So that is one thing where Pakistan is rattled. Why I am rattled is because of the fact of United States trying to pull in Turkey in the ball game, in this whole game. Is I wrote a couple of days before in Heartland that if you bring Turkey in, then there is going to be a chaos in Central Asia, because of the fact that Turkey has got very good relation with the ISIL. Turkey has got great relation with Al Qaeda in Arabian Peninsula. Turkey acts as a go-between AQAP and the Taliban also. Turkey has got access to the Central Asian jihadists, the Uzbeks and the Uzbeks are there, and then the Chechens are there, the Caucasian terrorists and the Central Asian terrorists who are holed up somewhere in Turkey or in North Africa or in parts of Syria, even playing for ISIL. If Turkey comes in, and Turkey would be brought in with the idea of disrupting this Russia-China build-up which is happening in Central Europe, which again, interestingly, takes us back to the great game.
It does.
And we would be talking about it, I presume, sometimes later.
We will be,
so,
absolutely.
And so Turkey coming in the whole picture, if Turkey comes in, Turkey would be brought in this picture, keeping this fact in mind that you are a sort of a hub with connection to all the radical and all the terrorist forces which are there. And now with Saudi Arabia looking at the other way and trying to rebuild and reform and so on and so forth, Turkey is one of the guys which can be used by NATO as far as their plans to disrupt the crystallization of Central Asian landmass is concerned. And Turkey can very well do that. And somewhere, I think George Friedman in his book Next 100 Years wrote something very interesting. I don't have the direct access to it, but if I remember, I can summarize it. He says that, you guys need to understand that US doesn't need to win war anymore. We just need to disrupt.
True.
So you are a world island which is sitting spot in the middle of Atlantic and Pacific, and you've got nothing to worry about as long as you can keep your economy intact, which these buggers are not being able to. So that's a different story. But what you can do is you can prevent other countries from growing into regional powers if you can manage to needle them, if you can manage to disrupt them, which is what they have been doing in Caucasia. As far as Russia is concerned, which is what they've been doing in East Europe, as far as Russia is concerned, which is what they've been trying to do with China, which is what they would be doing. And Afghanistan is, again, a very convenient location as far as access to Central Asia is concerned. So bringing in Turkey would probably mean that, US saying that we aren't gone, we are still there, we are here through Turkey. So that's how I see.
That's mainstream media. The US is pulling out. Pepe refers to, he put up a post also, okay, they're not actually moving out. The contractors, how will you get the contractors out? So what is there as an optical illusion? They're pulling out. They're not actually pulling out.
No, if you look at it, if you look at Turkey, if you look at probably, I don't want to take names. If the private mercenaries, if they come in, the corporate mercenaries, if they come in, forget about the terrorists. They're also mercenaries in some way because they collect their salaries from governments,
right.
Which we're not supposed to talk about here. So if I put the terrorists aside, the non-state actors aside, if I talk about the corporate mercenaries, yes, nothing stops them from being there. So United States pulling out, and United States pulling out is an illusion. Why? Because just about 2 minutes ago I was discussing, if you put in a puppet in the shape of Turkey, then where are you pulling out? You're not pulling out anywhere, and you're pulling out. United States is staying in Afghanistan or continuing to stay in Afghanistan was two things based as if I can quickly think of two reasons. One was the heroin trade, and one was monitoring Central Asia because you have nuclear Iran, you have a nuclear China, you have a nuclear Russia, you have a nuclear India. So what if I assume that the monitoring part is over now, and that kind of a monitoring, that kind of an extensive monitoring is not required. Just a customary monitoring of sort is going to do, and now is the part where you start the disruption game, and that is where Turkey comes in. So I don't see how America moving out is going to change things for the better for as far as Central Asia is concerned.
Mentioning the heroin trade, what I call is the narco-terrorism. I have a speaker coming up tomorrow whose specialty happens to be this. He's interested in this area, narco-terrorism. And I tell you to watch that too. So thank you, Arindam, for coming up on this segment. I hope that we see you again and continue writing books.
Thank you so much for calling me.
Absolutely. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. I think we've been in touch for 6 years probably, right?
Yes.
I have 3,000 songs to show for it.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.